Agent Morris with the NSA.
There is something real here.
Did you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And where?
I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General and some of which to the intelligence committees. I actually had the people with the first-hand knowledge provide a protected disclosure to the Inspector General. Biologics came to some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Those could represent exquisite new adversary technology.
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still in the program.
The government is covering up some level of its knowledge and understanding about what some of those things are.
The Sol Foundation, which just announced a new initiative for UFO research and policy.
It's nuts, man. I mean, we're just small-town buds who saw a UFO in the woods. I mean, now we're hanging out with the government.
Wow. What floor were you guys on?
Hello and welcome to another edition of Anomaly-NOW, straight out of Austin, Texas. I'm your host, Miles Lewis. This is the weekly, sometimes live, news and media roundup for the nonprofit 501c3 Scientific Anomaly Institute, aka the Anomaly Archives. Anomaly-NOW is here to highlight some of the news and information that we have come across in the past week or so. And we do this as a free public service as part of our nonprofit goals and mission to preserve anomalous information via our physical archives and our online presence, and to educate the public in as many ways as possible through online services such as this, as well as audio podcasts and in-person events as available. Oh, that reminds me, I forgot to So coming up, before I jump into that, of course, you can follow along with these news stories that we'll be covering today at our website, anomalyarchives.org, as well as at our Flipboard. That is flipboard.com/@anomalyarchives. And then there's a link there that you can click through and see there. And actually, can I demonstrate that just because I keep saying it? So yes, if you go to flipboard.com/@anomalyarchives, you'll see something like this. And if you click the magazine link, you'll get to what you normally see on our show. The up to 3 columns of thousands and thousands and thousands of news stories, over 12,000 stories, over 25,000 page flips. Just going. I think we started the Flipboard back in, the early to mid to late 2000s, or was it 10 years later? I forget. Anyway, you can go to there and see all the articles that we have flipped over there. Now, occasionally things won't flip for some reason. I have my suspicions as to why, but we try to put everything there in our news feed. Of course, this is also syndicated on our website, anomalyarchives.org. We can't get to all this information in any given broadcast, but we do try to aggregate it into posts on our website, anomalyarchives.org, where we then every month or so post this massive data dump of lists, links to anomaly news articles. Now, before we begin, I did want to make a correction. In last week's show, I was yet again ranting about the implications of tech bro billionaires who seem to have been manipulating the UFO scene as part of their military industrial Department of Defense contracts as they relate to both drone industry, defense and offense, as well as data gathering and data analysis. And we were talking about some of the alleged weirdnesses behind the people behind Enigma Labs and we had featured a video clip from a recent AMA Ask Me Anything Q&A featuring Jeffrey Kripal, Jacques Vallée, as moderated by Leslie Kane, put together by the Anomalous Coalition, a group of different UFO subreddits over at Reddit. And the question, as it turns out, that I highlighted by a certain user there was, in fact, apparently a question posed by podcast co-host Klaus of Patterns Tell Stories. No surprise there. He's the one who's one of the ones I've been quoting pretty widely as being vehemently concerned about this, among others, like Tanner Boyle and others. But in talking about the investigations into the seed funding of Enigma Labs and the fact that they have very publicly said that they promote a culture of anonymity in the company, and how they have used pseudonyms to disguise the names of some of their key people, Alex Smith being one of those pseudonyms. There have been some names that have come out, and I just want to correct an error that I was making last episode when I was talking about this. I believe I was attributing what Vallée's answer to Klaus's question at the AMA about this meeting that Jacques Vallée had with Gary Nolan and Peter Thiel about a UFO research project. He made clear that it wasn't about databases, but then he alluded to the fact that there is, he alluded to a woman of some renown who is in charge of, and if he didn't say Enigma Labs specifically, it was implied, a Peter Thiel related project. A lot of assumptions here, perhaps, but the point is, I believe I was talking about Alice Lloyd George, who is the person that Jack Brewer was and Jensine. Now I'm forgetting her name, but Jack Brewer, in an interview for EFR Expanding Frontiers Research with Dr. Jensine and Andresen, exploring the UAP money trail, they were talking about I'm conflating again. Andresen identified Kirsten Bartok Tow, Touw, as previously listed as a source of pre-seed funding for Enigma Labs. That's who they were talking about in her book discussion, Hyperconflation. And I am hyperconflating Kirsten Bartok Tow, which is the seed money person with whom I think Vallée was referring to, and who at least I think Klaus believes he's referring to, and that's Alice Lloyd George. Anyway, if you go to our webpage for Enigma Labs, we have links to a lot of this background information, and you can sort all that out. But yes, I just wanted to make that correction. In the previous episode, I was conflating Kirsten Bartok Tow with Alice Lloyd George. They are both affiliated with Enigma Labs. Kirsten Bartok Tow is apparently the high level venture capitalist who I have no doubt Vallée knows about and has rubbed elbows with, and perhaps that is who he was talking about, but it seemed more likely, and Klaus at least thinks, that it's Alice Lloyd George. All of that is to say, hey, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. It just Enigma Labs really kind of freaks me out with the associations, and anything out there having to do with UFOs associated with possible connections to certain tech bro billionaires really concerns me, but maybe it doesn't concern you. Anyway, onward and upward. Yet again, I just want to remind folks that there are these wonderful videos from the most recent archives of the Impossible Conference at Rice University earlier this year. The playlist is up and the videos are available publicly. You can find them in this playlist that the Rice Humanities YouTube channel has created. However, at least earlier today when I checked again, this playlist and these videos are still not publicly listed at YouTube, so you cannot find them through searching. You have to get to them by having access to a link to them. And so that's why we have over at our website a page for the 2025 Archives of the Impossible Conference, the UFO and the Impossible, where we embed that playlist and have a link there to that playlist so that you can more easily find them. I still have seen and heard references online where people are like, how do you get to these videos? I believe they are going to make them more publicly available, but they are quote unquote unlisted, which is YouTube's way of letting you make something public, but only findable if you have a direct link to it. And otherwise known as security through obscurity. I don't think that's the intention of Rice University here. I think somebody just needs to flip those switches. Moving right along to other events. Anomaly Archives alum are going to be involved in this Friday the 13th, June 13, 2025 event, Saul Ravencraft's Damned Show. You can go to damnedshow.com. That's DAMNEDSHOW.com and find out more about that. Saul Ravencraft is going to be doing a very interesting kind of esoteric occult variety show with a variety of cast members, including two Anomaly Archives alum who have done both in-person and virtual events for the Anomaly Archives when we were putting on our Adventure Club series in the early 2020s, during and after the, rather right before and during the pandemic. That would be our friends Victor Criterion. Oops. Come on out. Victor Criterion. Stop. Victor Criterion and I Need a Excess. So we're also, the Anomaly Archives is going to be tabling at this event. It's going to be at the new Nature's Treasures location. So you can go find out more about that by going to damnedshow.com. I do not believe this is a free event, but yeah, click tickets above to reserve your seat. General admission are $13 plus taxes and fees. VIP are $25 plus taxes and fees. General admission tickets will be available at the door for $20. And this new Nature's Treasure Event Center is at 11055 North Interstate Highway 35. That's IH35 at 11055. All right. Other interesting events in the news. There is this review of the SCU, Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, latest annual event. This held at the Rocket City there in Redstone Arsenal, Alabama. This is over at the Substack Sentinel News, sentinelnews.substack.com. A group of more than 200 scientists reviewed UFO research in Alabama from June 6th through 8th. The Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, SCU, held its annual conference in Huntsville, a city nicknamed Rocket City due to its longstanding ties to aerospace research. This is by Baptiste Friscourt, and is, like I say, available over at Sentinel News. I had really wanted to attend at least virtually this event. I really want to attend it in person. I think that they're doing good work. Don't always agree with their conclusions, but I think they are doing some of the better UFO, UAP focused research out there. And our good friend Robert Powell is one of the main driving forces there and original co-founders, I believe. And we've just really liked their work. And they've always got great presenters. And this looks to be a pretty comprehensive review of the conference. So you may want to go check that out over at sentinelnews.substack.com. Moving right along, there is another Anomicon, another virtual conference put on by Ryan Sprague. He started putting these on a few years ago. These are very informative and fun and free streaming conferences that he started a few years ago. There isn't any information yet, to my knowledge, about the 2025 event, but I know he is soliciting presenters, and they're going to be doing just a one-day event, I think, this year with less than 10 speakers, whereas in years past, last year and 2023, they had was a multi-day event and multiple speakers. I know that can be a lot to coordinate. I understand. Of course, we did our multi-day, like six Saturdays across the 6 weeks at the end of 2020 for our emergency fundraising streamathon. And that was all live. That was done live. No pre-recorded lectures, though there was some pre-recorded material, interstitial stuff. But anyway, so go to anomicon.com and you can find out more about Ryan Sprague's upcoming conference there. I'm also very excited about our good friend Daniel Allen Jones's emceeing yet again I guess this is the third annual Texas UFO conference in Jefferson, Texas. That's coming up Saturday, August 23rd, 2025. The 2025 Texas UFO Con at the Jefferson Tourism and Visitor Center. This is, of course, organized and hosted by our good friend Craig Woolheater, who has been long involved in the Bigfoot promotion, Bigfoot research promotion here in Texas and across the border into Louisiana and other states nearby. But yeah, our good friend Daniel Allen Jones posts on Facebook.com at facebook.com/thevortexofficial. And it's been a while since he posted there, but he travels all the time and makes it to every cryptozoology, Bigfoot, paranormal, and UFO conference that he can across Texas and again into states nearby. And we love how often he does such a great job of being an MC at these events. And again, coming up in August is the 2025 Texas UFO Con by our good friend Texas Bigfoot researcher Craig Woolheater. Okay, well, let's jump over to an acquaintance of mine, an experiencer, abductee, who I met at a local UFO disclosure meetup, has brought to my attention a researcher who, I'm not sure if he actually spoke at Contact in the Desert, but I was provided the link to an alleged Contact in the Desert 2025 presentation. So maybe he was there and did an informal presentation in one of the side rooms. I don't know, but that is called Using Archives and AI for Modern UAP Research by Richard Geldreich. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. And Richard Geldreich has a medium.com blog. It's you'll just have to search for it. He doesn't have an easy URL to remember. I think his handle is at RichGel99. That's RICHGEL 99. And he describes himself as a lover of mysteries, UAP, OSINT, that's open source intelligence / history buff, software developer, and his mottos: we will never be swamp gassed again, see beyond. And I got to say, there's a lot of really interesting information that he's digging up and posting about over at his blog. Most recently, a day ago, he posted this: the UFO cover-up has reached its recursive phase. Now he's doing a lot of stuff where he's engaging with AI, like Open AI and Chat GPT and that sort of thing. I utilize that stuff to a limited degree. I have very big issues with AI, but obviously it is a very valuable tool, and that's a lot of what he's interested in. But he also dug up this interesting information. Just briefly, New York Times Magazine's 1979 article, quote, UFO, the Untold Story from the Official Secret Files. And this was written in 1979 by our friend journalist Patrick Quige. That's Patrick Quige, Huyghe, who is associated with the SSE, the Society for Scientific Exploration, and its JSE, Journal for Scientific Exploration. But more interestingly and more actively, Anomalous.com, that wonderful paranormal and UFO related anomaly oriented news aggregator site, Anomalous.com, and the publishing site, AnomalousBooks.com, that we often mention because so many good books have been published by them, and which was founded by Patrick Quige and our good Texan friend Dennis Stacy, who sadly passed away so recently. But among the other things I noticed at Richard Geldreich's medium.com webpage, blog, what have you, is he's posted, let's see if I can find this right. Oh yes, mystery drone video compilation. And I'm not sure, let's say he writes, this is probably the largest single video compilation available, around 1,000 total videos. And there are 4 of these. It's a 4-part series that has been uploaded to archive.org, and it is just video after video after video of all the drone news coverage and amateur photograph videos, what have you, clips associated with last year's drone flap in New Jersey. And if you click through, it takes you to the clip playlist, and it is just massive. It just goes on and on and on, and there's just a ton of clips here, like just thumbing through, skipping from 1 to clip 45. Now, again, a lot of these really just, I'm like, these are just misidentified aircraft. But the fact that somebody went to the trouble of compiling all these and uploading them for posterity in a more easily accessible form, I think is fantastic. And there are definitely some weird ones in here, but yeah, each of these probably has about over 100 clips, and also, like I say, news coverage. So this is all pretty cool. And it was brought to my attention by my friend Carol Vance, who directed me to this Richard Geldreich's website and blog. And it was also Richard that made me aware of this thing that happened last Friday, which is pretty wild. So yeah, remember when Trump, before and after his getting into office the second time, said that they were going to get to the bottom of the drone flap mystery, the New Jersey drone mystery, and then all they came out saying was that, oh, these were all that the FAA allowed all this. No explanation, just nope, nothing to see here, just as before. Well, as of Friday, the White House has issued this fact sheet for some new executive orders. Say President Donald J. Trump restores American airspace sovereignty. This is dated June 6th, ensuring American sovereignty over its skies. Today, the president signed an executive order to ensure American sovereignty over its skies and a safe and secure airspace. And it basically is all about UAS, unmanned aircraft systems, and aka drones. And it doesn't address any explanation for what happened. It's just basically creating a drone task force to try to improve safety and get to the bottom of these issues. Now, the timing of this being so close to this recent massive drone attack in the war between Russia and Ukraine, by Ukraine against Russia, disabling so many of their aircraft is pretty significant. Over at thehill.com, which I'm guessing is partnered with News Nation, they report on an interview between Cuomo of News Nation and Lou Elizondo. Headline: UFO whistleblower praises Trump task force on drones. President Trump has signed executive orders on drones. One initiative creates a task force to study drone threats. President also wants the U.S. to lead in drone technology. And here again, I'm pretty sure there are all these various tech bro billionaires who are involved in this kind of shift away from the old legacy military industrial complex companies, aerospace, aviation companies, weapons companies, to these new ones run by companies owned or funded by Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and the Anduril guy, among just a few. And of course, I know this is not a partisan thing. There are people on both sides of the two-party system who partake of the funding trough that is getting money from military contractors to support their efforts. But yeah, you can go to thehill.com and read this article. Quote: the bottom line is we don't know what's in our skies, and drones continue to be an issue, Luis Elizondo told Cuomo. It's fantastic that this administration is taking this quite seriously. We have been calling for the creation of a task force for some time, and I think that it's great news that government is finally listening to the demands of the people. Elizondo is a former Defense Department employee who has become known as a whistleblower on UFOs. He praised John Kozlowski, the director of the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, for being open-minded about the potential existence of extraterrestrial technology. Quote, he's not like the previous Arrow director that was really just trying to obfuscate and push the narrative in one direction, Elizondo said. Kozlowski is very well trained and has incredible experience in the intelligence community, and he's very well respected. All of this reminds me of, and of course, just as an aside, you can go to the anomalyarchives.org website and do a search for mystery drone flap. We have a massive page where we're updating as we can. I've got links to these, several of these articles, including the archives about the this massive data dump of videos related to the New Jersey drone flap. But there was this article that almost made it past me. Came out late last month from the debrief.org. Tim McMillan's headline, "We are going to have a catastrophic event," quote unquote. Now he's quoting somebody else. Drone incursions in restricted airspace are surging in 2025. And yes, this just gets to the heart of the matter that, yes, whatever the drone flap in New Jersey and elsewhere is about, whether it's just misidentifications of hobbyists or what have you, clearly the war between Russia and Ukraine and the importance of drones in that war and all these drone incursions at American military bases here in the continental United States, as well as elsewhere, as well as drone swarms going after our Navy ships. This is a big deal. This is a significant sea change in the nature of warfare. And obviously, as much as I am a peacemonger and hate to see so much money spent on a military when we have such a crumbling civilizational infrastructure here and elsewhere on this planet, it really is obviously an important issue, and it's directly connected to this. And so much of this is now being run by AI, artificial intelligence. These are all interrelated issues, and you can't take any of them too lightly. But, well, let's take a quick break here. I'll be right back, and we're going to talk about, we're going to go a little deep into this new Wall Street Journal article.
Killinger, Dr. Henry Killinger, and this is my magic murder bat.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Anomaly Now for June 11th, 2025. It's a Wednesday. This is not live, but we are doing our weekly news and media roundup for the 501c3 Scientific Anomaly Institute. Yeah, well, oh man, big news. So yeah, I guess it was Friday or so when this news article hit the internet over at WSJ, that's the wallstreetjournal.com. The Pentagon's disinformation that fueled America's UFO mythology. U.S. military fabricated evidence of alien technology and allowed rumors to fester to cover up real secret weapons programs. Now, this is behind a paywall. You can, I think, sign up with just an email and get access to it. But even then, I think they cut off access after the first or second time viewing. But I'm going to go through this pretty much from beginning to end. And we'll just see what else we can share here with you. But yeah, it's by these authors, Joel Sheckman and Aruna Viswanatha. I am not familiar with these two journalists. I have never really heard of them before, but I just want to go through this and comment on several things that pop to mind here. First of all, the subtitle, or rather the title of this, The Pentagon Disinformation That Fueled America's UFO Mythology, of course, really mirrors the subtitle of my good friend Greg Bishop's important 2005 book, Project Beta, the story of Paul Benowitz's national security and the creation of a modern UFO myth. Not the modern UFO myth, as some say, but the creation of a modern UFO myth. And like I say, I'm not familiar with these two authors, but Joel Sheckman online is listed as, quote, WSJ Enterprise reporter on espionage, psyops, cyber, and corruption. He's also ex-Reuters investigative reporter on espionage, cyber, and corruption. And also, he says, lately philosophy, interestingly enough. Aruna Viswanatha is listed online via her LinkedIn page as a Washington Enterprise editor at the Wall Street Journal. And 4 days ago, I guess right before when this article came out, she wrote, Joel Sheckman and I started out with a simple question. Why are so many experienced national security officials claiming the Pentagon had a secret program to reverse engineer UFOs when the Pentagon is denying it ever did? The answer was crazier than we ever imagined. Well, I imagine that you two have little or no background in the UFO history. And so that always worries me, because I think it really helps to have that background. And hopefully they consulted with people who do. And this does sound like a very important investigation and revelation, even as I have concerns about it, but let's dive in. So again, this article is behind a paywall, so we won't be able to show you the text of this all, but you can, I think, log in with an email for free and take it all in. Here we go. A tiny Pentagon office had spent months investigating conspiracy theories about secret Washington UFO programs when it uncovered a shocking truth. At least one of those theories had been fueled by the Pentagon itself. The congressionally ordered probe took investigators back to the 1980s, when an Air Force colonel visited a bar near Area 51, a top-secret site in the Nevada desert. He gave the owner photos of what might be flying saucers. The photos went up on the walls, and into the local lore went the idea that the U.S. military was secretly testing recovered alien technology. But the colonel was on a mission of disinformation. The photos were doctored. The now retired officer confessed to the Pentagon of investigators in 2023. The whole exercise was a ruse to protect what was really going on at Area 51. The Air Force was using the site to develop top-secret stealth fighters viewed as a critical edge against the Soviet Union. Military leaders were worried that the programs might get exposed if locals somehow glimpsed a test flight of, say, the F-117 stealth fighter, an aircraft that truly did look out of this world. Better that they believe it came from Andromeda. Yes, well, so the Wall Street Journal appears to be delving into the emergence of the stories of crash saucers, pickled aliens, and reverse engineered alien craft starting at Area 51, and this is news? This hypothesis has been around for a long time. If they are finally coming clean on this, they need to name names. Who is this colonel? What relation might these efforts have to those reported by Greg Bishop in Project Beta and other sources? What about all the other fakes and hoaxes perpetrated by the Pentagon? Not least of which is just this one. Over at anomalyarchives.org, we've got a page for this claim that circulated on a number of news sites over the years. U.S. Air Force fake cloaking device cover story. A-7 Corsair 2 with fake Klingon cloaking device as cover for the F-117 stealth fighter. So there's photos here, both silly and allegedly real, as in staged. These two articles linked here. One to CNET from back in 2017 by Jeffrey Morrison. Arizona's incredible boneyard is purgatory for aircraft. And this is where they have this fake invisible aircraft with the wheels and a ladder going up to the cockpit, but there's nothing there. But more interestingly is this article by Tyler Rogaway. Yes, that's the guy that has written for various aviation and military hardware websites, news outlets, titled "The F-117 Stealth Fighter Program was actually had a Klingon cloaking device." Of course, he's joking, but they're saying that this was an ongoing prank, but also part of how they were trying to cleverly throw people off the scent of the existence of this F-117 stealth fighter. The prank, inside jokes didn't end with the crazy top secret decoy pod carried by the A-7s. The few visitors allowed to tour Tonopah Test Range Airport during the F-117's tenure there would be told that they will be shown the quote-unquote invisible aircraft. Ground crews would set up an elaborate scene in advance in one of Tonopah's dimly lit hangars. Wheels, chocks, an air hose, and even a pilot's helmet would be arrayed as if they were an invisible F-117 right there, with some of the components suspended in air by nearly invisible fishing line. There are photos here showing this alleged prank. Goes on to say, and a few ground crewmen working around the cloaked jet just as if they were servicing a real material aircraft, and it was a convincing vision, even if for just a brief moment. The visitors would enter the hangar and be totally stunned with what they were seeing. And to back up some of this, there's this website, f117sfa.org, with a page called A Look Back, F-117 Stealth Fighter Association. Quote, the Stealth Fighter Association is a Texas-based nonprofit organization. And there's a photo at the site, or there was at the time, that says fake cloaking device pod allegedly mounted on A7 Corsair 2s. And this all has to do with these A7 Corsair 2 aircraft that were being flown around to different military bases that were used as cover for the other actual stealth fighters. Anyway, this is a very insignificant, but still an example of the kinds of deception we know has gone on. So, and let's not forget the whole Roswell, Hangar 18, Area 51 mythos that, again, bears focusing upon, especially as it relates to the emergence of the MJ-12 Majestic 12 mythos. Bill Moore, Paul Benowitz, and the oft-conflated alternative Roswell scenarios outlined by Nick Redfern in 2005 and Annie Jacobson in 2011. This gets into what some of us refer to as the Japanese version of Operation Paperclip, whereby just like Operation Paperclip brought in these Nazis after the war and seeded them throughout universities and research and military programs, largely focusing on rocketry and aviation. There also was Unit 731, the biological human experimentation programs that were being done by the Japanese that were using disabled people, prisoners of war, as human subjects in terrible, horrific biological experimentation, and that these programs, according to evidence put forth in Nick Redfern's 2005 book, Body Snatchers in the Desert, in ways with the Nazi Horton brother flying wing and atomic engine technology and balloon technology, and like the Fugo balloon of the Japanese, and their high altitude experimentation with human subjects, the disabled, who might have progeria or other disabilities that cause them to look quote unquote alien, that's actually the source of the Roswell situation, and that everything else is cover story for that horrific truth. Whereas Annie Jacobson's version is just the last chapter in that mammoth Area 51 book about her that she wrote in 2011, which is largely just about the normal history of Area 51, which isn't just about stealth. It was about all advanced aviation testing. And so it's, again, this Wall Street Journal article is like, oh, Area 51 was just about stealth. Well, no. Yes, by the 1980s, sure. But before that, it's just where all the advanced aviation tech has been done. And it seems like to a lot of people like where advanced research in reverse engineering, whether it be of Russian or Chinese or non-human technologies, would happen and be test flown because of its isolation and massive range area. But it's only the last chapter of Annie Jacobson's Area 51 that has the similar but very different version of the Nick Redfern 2005 Body Snatchers in the Desert hypothesis, which is basically her contact, somebody who worked at Area 51, said they were told that it was basically the same theory, but that it was the Russians and Mengele had created fake aliens, chimeras from human body parts, and a fake spacecraft, and flown it over the United States in an attempt to create a War of the Worlds social panic. And that's what crashed at Roswell and has been suppressed and collected at Area 51 and hidden away. Meanwhile, over at Anomalous.com, one of their writers, WM, writes about all the coverage of this. At Coast to Coast, Alec Fernandez says the Area 51 cover story raises more questions than answers. Fernandez offers other objections and suggests, quote, the government's attempt to end the mystery may have only deepened it. In the Pentagon, disinformation has been fueling UFO conspiracies for decades. TK Randall notes the Wall Street Journal's article contention that the Air Force promoted UFO sightings as explanations for actual U.S. stealth fighter testing. We note that this new stealth fighter ploy recalls a 1997 assertion by National Reconnaissance Office historian Gerald K. Haynes, still promoted by some, that Project Blue Book investigators were able to attribute many UFO sightings to U-2 flights. And this is something I repeat to people all the time. It's like, yes, we know UFOs provide great cover stories for actual advanced undisclosed technology, but so this quote over at Anomalous goes on, see CIA's role in the study of UFOs 1947 to 1990. Intriguingly, both Dr. Bruce Maccabee, the late naval optical physicist and ufologist, and, quote, well-known UFO cynic Robert Schaefer debunked this claim in Leonard David's January 14th, 2015 article, CIA about UFOs of the 1950s and 60s. It was us. UFO report dates and U-2 test flight dates didn't match up. More is expected on this controversy, reports Anomalous.com. So, continuing briefly back into the Wall Street Journal article, it goes on to say, this episode, reported now for the first time, was just one of a series of discoveries that the Pentagon team made as it investigated decades of claims that Washington was hiding what it knew about extraterrestrial life. That effort culminated in a report released last year by the Defense Department that found allegations of a government cover-up to be baseless. Yeah, a report that was roundly criticized for its many errors and inaccuracies. It was also reported that there was, in fact, a secret version for Congress. Finally, we are learning about some of what was in the secret version, allegedly, of that report provided to Congress. And in fact, you can go to the link came out in February 2024, report on the historical record of U.S. government involvement with unidentified anomalous phenomena. And none of this juicy detail is in there, and it's all dismissive and, like I say, riddled with factual errors and inaccuracies, get dates wrong, all kinds of stuff. Going on, there's this also this article from News Nation in December of 2024, and that is titled, Arrow gives classified briefing to House lawmakers. The classified briefing follows congressional hearings last month. Lawmakers have pressed the Pentagon on UAPs after whistleblower testimony. The Pentagon says there is no evidence of UAPs are alien in nature. But yeah, so that just, again, is information that there appears to have been a secret briefing. And, there's also, of course, the New Paradigm Institute reporting on this. Let me see if I can get this over here. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, where did I put it? Dang it. Excuse me for a second here. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. So over at newparadigminstitute.org, using the Wall Street Journal, the Pentagon is gaslighting the public on UFOs again. And down in the article is this quote. Additionally, the New Paradigm Institute has been informed through meetings with congressional staff that AARO has already delivered Part 2 of its historical record to Congress, which remains classified. If true, the timing of the journal piece now appears less like journalism and more like strategic narrative priming, conditioning both lawmakers and the public to accept the report's pre-scripted conclusions, with the likely publication of the sanitized version coming soon. This isn't transparency, it's perception management. Yeah. So the Wall Street Journal article continues. In fact, a Wall Street Journal investigation reveals the report itself amounted to a cover-up, but not in the way the UFO conspiracy industry would have people believe. The public disclosure left out the truth behind some of the foundational myths about UFOs. The Pentagon itself sometimes deliberately fanned the flames in what amounted to the U.S. government targeting its own citizens with disinformation. At the same time, the very nature of Pentagon operations, an opaque bureaucracy that kept secret programs embedded within secret programs, cloaked in cover stories, created fertile ground for the myths to spread. Again, none of this is news, folks, to those paying attention. This has been assumed and witnessed firsthand by a wide range of UFO and aviation researchers over the years. Returning to the article. These findings represent a stunning new twist in the story of America's cultural obsession with UFOs. In the decades after a 1938 radio broadcast of yada, 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 spread panic, speculation, blah, blah, blah. More recently, things took an ominous turn when a handful of former Pentagon officials went public with allegations of a government program to exploit extraterrestrial technology and hide it from Americans. Those claims led to the Pentagon's investigation. Well, it's about freaking time. Now, evidence is emerging that government efforts to propagate UFO mythology date back all the way to the 1950s. Shocked I am, I tell you. Well, here is maybe where we are finally getting somewhere with this acknowledgement that it goes back to at least the 1950s and wasn't just a modern 80s onward operation. This account is based on interviews with 24 current and former U.S. officials, scientists, and military contractors involved in the inquiry, as well as thousands of pages of documents, recordings, emails, and text messages. Now, this does sound like quite a significant investigation indeed, but are they speaking exclusively of their own investigations, or or only what they are being told about the DoD's AARO investigation? I really want to hear the nitty-gritty as to how they're vetting all this information. Returning to the article, at times, as with the deception around Area 51, military officers spread false documents to create a smokescreen for real secret weapons programs. In other cases, officials allowed UFO myths to take root in the interest of national security. For instance, to prevent the Soviet Union from detecting vulnerabilities in the systems protecting nuclear installations. Stories tended to take on a life of their own, such as the 3-decade journey of a purported piece of space metal that turned out to be nothing of the sort. And one long-running practice was more like a fraternity hazing ritual that spun wildly out of control. Oh boy, here we go. Now, recall our past commentary about James Lukatsky's quotes about counterintelligence operations for every secret program, creating fake documents and seeding them on military governmental servers even. He lamented how he knows people that he likes and trusts who are convinced of the reality of certain documents, certain information that he himself knows to be fake. The mention of the Soviet Union and nuclear installations, of course, brings us to the variety of issues and stories surrounding Bill Moore, Richard Doty, and Paul Benowitz and the Project Beta saga. Bill Moore was able to speak and read Russian, and there was concern purportedly that Paul Benowitz, who was intercepting these strange signals at Kirtland Air Force Base, was perhaps getting the attention of Soviet spies who might be interested in learning what he's detecting, because it may reveal secrets about what's going on at that base and with regards to advanced aviation technology and possibly nuclear weapons. Of course, Robert Salas, whose Malmstrom Air Force Base claims fit right into this, and we're going to get to that in just a little bit. While the mention of 30-year journey of purported space metal recalls the story of Art's Parts, also known as the Roswell material, which centers on a small metallic fragment mailed to radio host Art Bell in 1996. According to the sender, these fragments were from an alleged advanced aerospace vehicle that crashed near Roswell, New Mexico in 1947, though none of the provenance of this has ever been established, and that made it impossible really to dig into this appropriately from the start. The sender claimed the material had unique properties for, quote, inertial mass reduction, aka levitation or anti-gravity, through a bismuth and magnesium layering designed to function as a terahertz waveguide, unquote. Now see also Micah Hank's commentary on that alleged material. I'll try to put the link to the show notes, but yeah, he's talked about Arrow's analysis of this and his own encounters with people over the phone who may actually have played a part in this and his connection to that particular metal, I believe. Returning to the article, investigators are still trying to determine whether the spread of disinformation was the act of local commanders and officers or a more centralized institutional program. Yeah, that's been a central question for those of us following these cases for decades. The Pentagon omitted key facts in the public version of the 2024 report that could have helped put some UFO rumors to rest, both to protect classified secrets and to avoid embarrassment, the journal investigation found. The Air Force, in particular, pushed to omit some details it believed could jeopardize secret programs and damage careers. This is very damning evidence of continued cover-ups, folks. I mean, come on. Like, the whole reason Arrow exists is to get to the bottom of this, and then they lie to us. They omit the most important stuff. Even if you don't believe this whole like, oh, we had to withhold this until later. I mean, goodness. Returning to the article, the lack of full transparency has only given more fuel to conspiracy theories. Members of Congress have formed a caucus composed mainly of Republicans to examine unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP in bureaucratic speak. The caucus has demanded the intelligence community disclose which agencies, quote, are involved with UAP crash retrieval programs, end quote. MAGA skepticism about the quote unquote deep state further feeds the notion that government bureaucrats have been keeping those secrets from the American public. At a November hearing of two House Oversight Subcommittees, Rep. Nancy Mace, a Republican from South Carolina, cast doubt on the Pentagon's report. Quote, I'm not a mathematician, but I can tell you that doesn't add up, she said. Now, again, just got to invoke the deep state, which, remember, like so many co-opted terms, was originally created by left-leaning parapolitical researchers who, were not ascribing any political leaning other than Eisenhower's military-industrial complex type of, continuity of government, COG type of systems. And but that has gotten co-opted into this now partisanly perceived situation. You can't put this exclusively at the feet of the current political party in power, not without asking how, why, and by whom, or by what hidden Machiavellian forces we've been manipulated by over the last several years. Democrats tried to get to the bottom of this many times before now. So why now? Because it perhaps better serves certain power-hungry technocracy oligarchs who are trying to wrest control from any pre-existing legacy advanced aviation military-industrial complex companies? Perhaps. Speculation. Returning to this article, I'm going to skip over this. There's a section called Stupid Enough, in quotes, talking about Sean Kirkpatrick and him giving a description of how he came to be recruited as the first head of Arrow. Now, since his departure, there have been quite a lot of speculation about why he was tapped and where he's moved on to. Some suggesting that he had patents that are relevant to the UFO UAP technology scene, and that now he is involved in furtherance of that in this military industrial complex. It's some of that information of where he works now and patents he had before are, I'd say, very intriguing. All right, I'm going to skip a lot more of this because it just goes into like what Arrow is supposed to do. Yes, investigate UFO UAP sightings, and yes, here's some statistics, and their attempts at debunking the stuff, and going back to 1945 to assess the claims made by dozens of former military employees that Washington operated a secret program to harvest alien technology. Yada yada yada. Returning to the article. But Kirkpatrick soon discovered that some of the obsession with secrecy verged on the farcical, like all of this. A former Air Force officer was visibly terrified when he told Kirkpatrick's investigators that he had been briefed on a secret alien project decades earlier and was warned that if he ever repeated the secret, he would be jailed, that he could be jailed or executed. The claim would be repeated to investigators by other men who had never spoken of the matter, even with their spouses. It turned out the witnesses had been victims of a bizarre hazing ritual. For decades, certain new commanders of the Air Force's most classified programs, as part of their induction briefings, would be handled a piece of paper with a photo of what looked like a flying saucer. The craft was described as an anti-gravity maneuvering vehicle. Again, none of this is news, quote unquote, or new to anyone following the subject for any length of time. The idea that much of the most sensational stories of craft saucers, etc., could be intelligence tests perpetrated against government employees or military service people has been around a long time, even before this 1999 article reproduced at the FAS, Federation of American Scientists, and has similarities to what's called phishing simulations, which is cybersecurity speak for trying to simulate phishing emails where somebody's trying to get access to your private data. So, yeah, over at this archived article at FAS.org, The Lying Game, National Security and the Test for Espionage and Sabotage. By George W. Masch, M-A-S-C-H-K-E, December 1999. If I were to direct you to answer a question falsely, would your false answer be a lie? As absurd as such an exercise may seem, it is a game which the United States government plays with thousands of Americans to determine whether they are worthy of being trusted with America's most sensitive secrets. The Department of Defense, DoD, began playing this game with its employees in the mid-1990s, and in 1999, the Department of Energy, DOE, decided to follow suit. Probably was going on before this. The game is the, quote, Test for Espionage and Sabotage, TES, a variety of what is known in the polygraph trade as a directed lie control test, DLCT. Before our government plays this high-stakes game with you, you would do well to know the unspoken rules. Your polygraph examiner will under no circumstances give you an honest explanation of the game he is playing with you. In the following paragraphs, I will provide details about this polygraph screening format that the United States government does not want you to know, along with references for further reading. Now, again, this is just kind of a brief aside. It just reminds me, again, of what has been suggested for a long, long time, and that is that UFO researchers have long thought that some of these most sensational cases could just be loyalty tests to see, are you, if you're shown something really reality shattering, are you going to talk about it with your spouse or tell a friend or whatever? The article continues. Officers were told that the program they were joining, dubbed Yankee Blue, was part of an effort to reverse engineer the technology on the craft. They were told never to mention it again. Many never learned it was fake. Kirkpatrick found the practice had begun decades before and appeared to continue still. The Defense Secretary's office sent a memo out across the service in the spring of 2023 ordering the practice to stop immediately, but the damage was done. Investigators are still trying to determine why officers had misled subordinates, whether as some type of loyalty test, a more deliberate attempt to deceive, or something else. After that 2023 discovery, Kirkpatrick's deputy briefed President Joe Biden's Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, who was stunned. Could this be the basis for the persistent belief that the U.S. has an alien program that we've concealed from the American people? Haynes wanted to know. According to people familiar with the matter, how extensive was it? She asked. The official responded, "Ma'am, we know it went on for decades. We are talking about hundreds and hundreds of people. These men signed NDAs. They thought it was real." Now, again, go back to, what we've mentioned before. We've relayed Micah Hanks's commentary and reportage on this in a previous show or shows. The same episode that quotes Lukatsky on counterintelligence, where he talks about, there being a counterintelligence officer for every secret program, and that all they do is create fake information to throw people off the scent. And in that same show of October 22nd, 2024, UFOs and Counterintelligence, False Narratives and Fake UAP Programs, he links to Sean Kirkpatrick being interviewed for a NASA podcast called Space Time. And just after he talked about the Arts Parts Roswell crash UFO medal, he says this for about 3 minutes on the subject.
In fact, didn't match anything from extraterrestrial. UAP non-disclosure agreements are alleged to have been conducted either separately or under the Atomic Energy Act or under the Air Force. And then really surrounding the NDAs are a lot of allegations about, threats of retaliation by death if they gave away this information. What's interesting about the NDA discussion is, first, there are no UAP specific NDAs, with the exception of there was a fake UAP program that we called out in the report that was used as training and a hoax. And so by the letter of the definition, that was a UAP NDA, but it wasn't a real UAP NDA. And the NDAs writ large, what a lot of people fail to account for is prior to about 2000, I believe 13, NDAs were not standard. They were all done per organization, per service, but they all had Title 18 language in them. Title 18 is the language that is called out for consequences of disclosing classified information to anybody, but especially to foreign governments. And in Title 18, it does actually say if you give away classified information to foreign government, you can be punished with a range of punishments up to and including death. That language got sometimes pulled out and put into an NDA up front, and sometimes it's just called out as Title 18 language. After 2017, all NDAs became standardized into two forms, and that specific language is no longer visible when you look at it. But if you dig into the title, that's an implied consequence. The point of that is, contextually, if you're a young officer and this is your first exposure to a lot of things in the classified world, and somebody puts one of these NDAs in front of you and it calls out punishment by death, that's going to stick with you. And if you're on one of these unfortunate people that may have victim to one of the fake UAP NDAs, that's going to stick with you. So these are all pieces of a story that contribute to the larger narrative, none of which is true when you dig into it. It has different aspects that are colored by different people's perceptions and interpretations of a number of events.
So just to correct that is not a NASA podcast. That's the NSSA, not NASA, the National Security Space Association, which is at nssaspace.org. That is apparently their podcast Space Time. Anyway, moving right along, back into the article, getting towards the end of it, or at least we'll be stopping soon. The finding could have, the article goes on to say, the finding could have been devastating to the Air Force. The service was particularly sensitive to the allegations of hazing and asked the Arrow hold off on including the finding in the public report, even after Kirkpatrick had briefed lawmakers on the episode. Kirkpatrick retired before that report was finished and released. In a statement, a Defense Department spokeswoman acknowledged that Arrow had uncovered evidence of fake classified program materials relating to extraterrestrials and had briefed lawmakers and intelligence officials. The spokeswoman, Sue Goff, said the department didn't include that information in its report last year because the investigation wasn't completed, but expects to provide it in another report scheduled for later this year. Quote, the department is committed to releasing a second volume of its historical record report to include Arrow's findings on reports of potential pranks and inauthentic materials, unquote, Goff said. Now, just remember, Sue Goff, we kind of called her out, as others have. She was brought to my attention. And guess what? She was sitting right next to the second Arrow director, Kozlowski, at the November 2024 UAP hearing in front of, what's her name? Jill Brand. Yeah. Note the presence of Sue Goff next to John Kozlowski at the hearing. And we had called attention to the fact that she did either a dissertation or some kind of white paper called Info Operations Roadmap years earlier. And I didn't quote it, but basically she's basically saying it's all right for the military to perpetrate psychological operations on American citizens. That's the gist, if I recall. Yes, the evolution of strategic influence. And yeah, I have a real problem with that. I think you should too. And we briefly covered this and information about Sue Goff in a Anomaly-NOW episode from I guess it was September 4th, 2024. Also, just a weird aside, the journalist over at liberationtimes.com, Christopher Sharp, he says that Goff told Liberation Times, quote, Mr. Elizondo provides technical advice on a variety of classified topics for the U.S. Space Force. And the thing is, it's Elizondo who is one of the most vocal critics of Sue Goff, as basically saying that she's running cover for these programs and denying his credentials as it relates to the OSAP ATIP Pentagon program, which I think there are some big questions that still need to be answered about his participation. So the last part of the article mainly goes into a section called A Bunker in Montana. And this has to do with the Robert Salas story of nuclear weapons at the Malmstrom Air Base in 1967 going offline during a UFO sighting. The article says Kirkpatrick investigated another mystery that stretched back 60 years. In 1967, Robert Salas, now 84, was an Air Force captain sitting in a walk-in closet-sized bunker manning the controls of 10 nuclear missiles in Montana. He was prepared to launch apocalyptic strikes should Soviet Russia ever attack first, and got a call around 8 p.m. one night from the guard station above. A glowing reddish-orange oval was hovering over the front gate. Salas told Kirkpatrick's investigators. The guards had their rifles drawn, pointed at the oval object appearing to float above the gate. A horn sounded in the bunker, signaling a problem with the control system. All 10 missiles were disabled. Salas soon learned a similar event occurred at other silos nearby. Were they under attack? Salas never got an answer. The next morning, a helicopter was waiting to take Salas back to base. Once there, he was ordered, never discuss the incident. Solis was one of 5 men interviewed by Kirkpatrick's team who witnessed such events in the 1960s and 70s. While sworn to secrecy, the men began sharing their stories in the 1990s in books and documentaries. Kirkpatrick's team dug into the story and discovered a terrestrial explanation. The barriers of concrete and steel surrounding America's nuclear missiles were thick enough to give them a chance, if hit first by a Soviet strike. But scientists at the time feared the intense storm of electromagnetic waves generated by a nuclear detonation might render the hardware needed to launch a counterstrike unusable. To test this vulnerability, the Air Force developed an exotic electromagnetic generator that simulated this pulse of disruptive energy without the need to detonate a nuclear weapon. When activated, this device, placed on a portable platform 60 feet above the facility, would gather power until it glowed, sometimes with a blinding orange light. It would then fire a burst of energy that could resemble lightning. And in the article, there are 2 images associated with this that they say are let's see, a model of an electromagnetic pulse testing site shown in a 1978 Pentagon document, and 1973 Pentagon document diagrams a close-up of the part of the equipment that fires an electromagnetic wave that can appear like a bolt of lightning during the test. Now, yeah, so I'm just going to skip the rest of that, but yes, there, of course, is an official rebuttal from Robert Solis, as I would expect, over at the OhiValleyNews.com. Opinion, a rebuttal from Robert Solis of of Ohi to is it paywalled? Yeah. Anyway, so there is a rebuttal, and apparently it's behind a paywall, or you have to sign in or something. And I know folks who I respect who are very critical of that incident and say that it didn't actually happen. But there are other incidents, and this is again, I think, where the New Paradigm Institute's rebuttal comes into play and is actually worth looking at. Of course, over at the Twitter X account of Jeff Knox, a skeptic, but who posts a lot of great UFO information. He's posted links to the to the PDFs for the 2 images that the Wall Street Journal supplied. And if I can, I'll get that going right here real quick, just to show you. Yes. Okay. So the explanation for the missile shutdown is problematic. They are referring to the TEMPS simulator, which wasn't a thing until the mid-70s. All the tests were done on scale models at SRI's test range. Don't see how they explain Echo shutdown. So yes, there's these images. Sorry, not. Let me share that with you. There we go. So yeah, Jeff Knox over at X Twitter, and these are the images that are in that article right there. And then the second image, inverse cone structure. The structure starts at the end of the bicone with a diameter equal to the bicone, and then linearly decreases in diameter throughout its length. But yeah, Knox is one of those that doesn't even think Solis's event ever happened. But just setting that aside, yeah, I love it when skeptics raise arguments against the skeptics and the debunking. I think I like that. It really makes me happy. Anyway, yeah, I'll try to post the links to those PDFs that he found that are the source of that information. And yeah, the dates, it's not beyond the realm of plausibility that if these papers came out in the 70s, that the military already had something in the 60s that was doing it. That's just kind of standard UFO lore, right? There's always some advanced tech that's hidden from the public. The article ends basically, the article ends saying, concealing the truth from men like Solis and deliberate efforts to target the public with disinformation unleashed within the halls of the Pentagon itself, a dangerous force which would become almost unstoppable as decades passed. The paranoid mythology the U.S. military helped spread now has a hold over a growing number of its own senior officials who count themselves as believers. This is why the CIA aren't supposed to act domestically with disinformation. But we live in an interconnected world with digital technology. It all affects everybody. The final sentence of this Wall Street Journal article. The crisis grew to a boil over a piece of metal mailed to a late-night radio host in 1996, which the sender said they had been told was part of a crashed spaceship. Well, yes, again. So, as I mentioned, July 17th, 2024, Micah Hanks's podcast, The Roswell Material, Oak Ridge and Arrow Analyze Art's Parts. This is all not that new, but thankfully, again, people like Micah have been covering it. And we'll provide the link to that Space-Time interview with Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, because again, I think he talks about that right before the clip we played. And yes, the New Paradigm Institute's using the Wall Street Journal, the Pentagon is gaslighting the public on UFOs again as a rebuttal, I think is worth looking at. And I don't think I mentioned, but gosh, there's so many things I didn't mention, but I've got to wrap this up. But yes, this article is the first of 2 parts. Stay tuned for part 2. I can't wait. I'm very excited to see the rest of this. But I got to say, man, it's about damn time that somebody looked into this stuff and acted on it and told the American people the truth. And none of this invalidates the probability that there is something real at the heart of the UFO phenomenon, that there is something else going on here. It doesn't address the UFO phenomenon at all. This is all just about what we have always known, that humans deceive other humans. And maybe the phenomenon itself deceives us. But there's a whole other realm of investigation. Well, that's going to be it. Thank you for joining us. You can go to anomalyarchives.org. Please go to patreon.com/anomalyarchives and join our Patreon community there. We're about to drop a bunch of cool, fun, rare stuff this month. We don't actually have a live presentation for the Anomaly Academy patrons this month. It's my birthday tomorrow, folks, and it's just been a busy month, but we're gonna drop some really fun, cool stuff. But you got to be a Patreon member, so go sign up even for free. But please, if you can donate any money at all, we greatly appreciate it. That's patreon.com/anomalyarchives. Thank you for joining us. Good night, and be safe. We love you.